So Marty took me out to see the new Dungeons and Dragons movie, and I went under protest. And I'll explain that a little bit. But it was a fun film. It was an action film. The plot wasn't anything new or major or startling or anything like that. But the actors were good. The direction was good. The visuals were fantastic. And they stayed relatively true to the Dungeons and Dragons lore. And we got a little bit of a surprise when we went in there because apparently the first 50 theater goers or whatever uh, got a free polyhedral die. And Marty got a 20. It's like, oh, wow. And then I got an 8. It's like, oh, wow. We were more excited about that than the movie, I think. We were like, this is so cool. And we got home, and Marty tried rolling hers, and she was trying for a natural 20. And first roll, I think, was like a 4 or something. And I rolled mine, and I got an 8 immediately. Okay, I'm good. Max mine out. But she was rolling and rolling and rolling right before she finally got a 20. It's like, yeah, he got a 20. But it looks like it may have a little bit of a bias towards 15 and 9 because those numbers kept coming up. We'd have to roll a lot to find out. But anyway, we really enjoyed the movie. Like I said, the actors did a really good job. There was a lot of humor, very funny bits in it. Yeah. And Chris Pine and Michelle Rodriguez just did an excellent job. In fact, all the characters were well done and enjoyable. Um, and they had a little bit of some of this woke stuff that was supposed to go in there. See, the problem with that is the Dungeons and Dragons community has never cared about any of that stuff. They say, "Oh, look, we've got Michelle Rodriguez as a barbarian. Ooh, it's a woman barbarian. Aren't you shocked?" And no, I mean, girls have been able to play barbarians, or men have been able to play female barbarians for almost as long as D&D's been around. And to top that off, if they go back, there was the second of the sort of big Dungeons and Dragons movies, which I think it was a direct to video, but it was actually pretty good. It was better than the first big one with Jeremy Irons. So that one was just, the second one was actually pretty good, but it had, guess what, a female barbarian. Ooh, you guys are just kind of a little behind the power curve. They're making fun of, like, oh, we're going to, the director said she likes emasculating male characters. So she made Chris Pine a bard, and he didn't do a lot of fighting. Bards don't do a lot of fighting. Well, they can, but, it depends on how you want to play. And this is the thing. All the characters that they showed would have been perfectly allowable in any D&D campaign going way back. In fact, I've been playing D&D on and off since it essentially first came out. And one of the early complaints, this was an early complaint, was in the very first rule sets. If you wanted to play a female character, your strength was limited. Now, that's a reflection of reality, but it's, this is a fantasy game. That got changed almost immediately. And it wasn't anything I ever enforced in any of my games. And you had guys playing female characters. We didn't have a lot of girls playing D&D back in the day, but, it would have been welcome. And that's the other thing, is because we didn't care race, color, creed. The point was to play the game. I've played with people of all races, religions. It didn't matter. And you would never, and again, back when I was playing clear up through the 90s, you would never be unwelcome to a D&D session. We were always looking for new players. But anyway, so, they tried their little bit of woke stuff, but to be honest, it was hardly noticeable. It was like, all right, sorry, I've already seen that, so it wasn't anything new or startling, and it didn't detract from the movie either. I mean, I was aware of it, but it was just like, it wasn't a big deal. So my biggest problem with the movie, and why I went under protest. So Wizards of the Coast, who bought the Dungeons and Dragons properties from TSR a long time ago, and then Hasbro brought Wizards of the Coast. Well, they saw a big jump in profits in the D&D stuff because of the online D&D games that people started watching, and then Dungeons and Dragons was featured prominently in the series Stranger Things, which was quite popular. And 5th edition, when it came out, it was genuinely a lot more accessible than a lot of the earlier editions. And so it was easier for people to just start playing. And it was more of the role play than the wargaming, so it had a little broader appeal. But anyway, so boom, the popularity increases, their profits increased. Great. In fact, I think their profits increased 50% in a single year. Wow, great. So they go to the shareholders, great deal. So then they decide, well, we need to keep doing that. And unfortunately, even with a much broader audience, you can hit market saturation pretty quick with something like Dungeons and Dragons. And while it is sort of a fad, the tabletop side of it, that fad's going to fade. You got fewer and fewer people want to meet up for a tabletop gaming session, and they'll play for a while, and then okay, move on to the next thing unless they're really into it, and then you get back to your sort of core audience, and you have some growth, but not nearly what they experienced early on. And then then you get they've got online tabletops that you can use, and so you can play with anybody on any. But now you're getting closer and closer to video games. So Wizards of the Coast has got a bunch of video game marketers who I really question whether they understand tabletop gaming at all. Because I'm listening to some of the comments. It's like, you guys need to go play D&D for a month and then come back and decide which one. But anyway, so they want to monetize Dungeons and Dragons. They say it's under monetized, so we need to monetize. We need to basically make more money. So pure greed. And so they started doing some really hurtful, hateful things against their core audience. And what they don't understand is that a lot of the hardcore D&D players are both very intelligent and, remarkably so, independent. And back in the day when Dungeons and Dragons was like the only game in town, that's fine. But you've got entirely too many role-playing games out there, including, and this is what happened, they had a lot of independent Dungeons and Dragons clones that came out under an open gaming license years back. And, everybody was doing their own thing and whatnot. And there was mostly, doing older rule sets and redoing them so they were more playable. And it was for people that liked the older style of play versus like the 5th edition and whatnot. But anyway, so they went to cut off the open gaming license and just, and everybody like, oh, really, and then they started, again, making all this woke noise. It's like, were you guys not paying attention to the original games? And we're going to be more inclusive. It's like, what? And so they're hiring diversity hires who, again, I don't think have ever even played the game, making bad decisions on stuff. And they start doing this toxic fan base thing. And there was no toxic fan base. It was just, we're going to do our own thing. And I don't think they understand that there's too many options out there. Dungeons and Dragons is the biggest, best known. And, I love it. That's fine. But if it were to go away tomorrow, including my old, if I got all the rule sets, if those just disappeared off my shelf tomorrow, I got stuff I can play. And a lot of people are figuring this out. It's like, you know what? We really don't need you. And then they started doing their own tabletop thing, which wasn't competing with a lot of third-party online tabletops because it wasn't very good. It's like, well, I understand it's got the name, it's official and all that stuff, but it has to be workable, otherwise people aren't going to use it. And so they've been pushing that, and they've just been doing a lot of really hurtful things in a business sense, but especially against their prime demographic and their primary fan base. And some of their thought processes about it are just really puzzling. But it's backfired on them twice now. And one of the things was they were promoting this Dungeons and Dragons movie. It's a big budget film, and it shows. It's the best of the bunch so far. But they're promoting this. Meanwhile, they're also stabbing all the fans in the back. Well, I was among a lot of people who said, well, I'm just going to boycott the movie. And all of a sudden, their interest has dropped, and they were in a panic. And it's like, hey, what are we going to do? They're promoting the heck out of this, and all the fans are saying, oh. And there's, I'm sure, a certain percentage of people that'll go see it for the action and the flash and the name and all that stuff. But your core demographic is Dungeons and Dragons players. And I overheard one of the theater workers saying, oh yeah, all the Dungeons and Dragons players are boycotting it. It's like, ooh, okay. But so that's why I went under protest. Body wanted to see it. I wanted to see it too. It looked good, so all right, Wizards of the Coast got some of our money. But anyway, like I said, it was an enjoyable movie, and we got free dice out of it and everything. And when it comes out on Blu-ray or whatever, I'm going to own it because I got to add it to my collection. But yeah, the action was great. Like I said, it was well choreographed, and visually it wasn't like they do so many of these movies now, so busy that you can't tell what's going on. And you'll get these movies that are just, the space battles or whatever, and I got to go back 4 or 5 times to see what all happened. Well, this one, they had lots of excitement, lots of good stuff. But anyway, so yeah, I definitely give it a thumbs up. I definitely give Wizards of the Coast a thumbs down.